I felt sorry for Marius Jonker. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Villiers-Leroux, do you think he was? Do you think it was enough evidence to show that he was in front?
Yeah, he was in front. If he's an inch in front, he's an inch in front.
I don't think anyone should be put in that position.
No, not at all.
Not when you're from South Africa. You have to live there.
Crouch, bind, set.
Joe presents the House of Rugby.
So it's first blood to the Lions, 1-0 in the series. Here on House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone, we'll discuss exactly how they beat the world champions in their backyard. Shaunie, where did you watch it then, mate?
I watched it actually in London Irish. I had a player appearance yesterday in London Irish.
That must have cost you a few quid. You'd be devastated for that.
No.
Oh yeah, no.
I was perfectly fine. It was actually a good atmosphere there. It was good to see people back in the club enjoying themselves again. It was a bit of crack around, so I was happy enough.
I would introduce you, Greg, but you're a regular now, mate. So, Greig Laidlaw, how are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Good to be back this week, and obviously down in London yesterday to watch the game as well. So,
he was making money. He was making a few bob.
Mate, he was just giving the people what they want. Just telling them exactly what he saw, how the game went. Some in-depth analysis, not just a bit of crack from you.
For the love of the game, for sure.
But a proper test match that, hey, Shaunie, the physicality. What stood out for you?
Yeah, it was, but I didn't think it was. I didn't think it didn't get the heart racing as quickly as I think that maybe the next one will be. It was kind of tit for tat, wasn't it? And it was slow, and the first half wasn't great to watch. But there was a physical game. Obviously, the boys I thought done really well. I think they came out in the second half and performed a lot better than the first half, obviously. But the Springboks won't be happy about the way they played either. And we just got there in the end, thankfully. But what a way to start the series. It's going to make it very exciting now going forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously cliche, game of two halves. But, what did they change in that second half particularly to sort of overturn them so much?
Well, I think South Africa have been pretty pleased, I reckon, with that sort of first half performance. And they were almost quite comfortable in a sense at half time because that sort of kick pressure plan really worked for them. But the second half, the Lions... They really sort of won the kick battle, essentially. The kicks were contestable. They were able to win quite a lot of them back. And obviously the discipline turned big time as well. And the penalties really hurt South Africa in that second half and just allowed the Lions to get field position, grab a few penalties. And obviously the quick start to the second half, made a big difference to the Lions.
Yeah, for me it was the momentum. So much is talked about momentum in games. And it was as if the best teams, they might lose it for a little period, but they get it back quickly. And it was pretty much the first kick-off, the Lions kicked back, they let the ball bounce, they won a penalty, into 22, another penalty, try. And then after that, they just couldn't wrestle it back. I know there was a few, whether dubious or not, decisions of the TMO, etc. And we'll get into that. But for me, they just couldn't get a foothold in the game. They couldn't hold it for any phases. And the Lions started getting off the line more aggressively. And it really paid. And for you, Shaunie, what was the key in terms of the forward battle, getting on top? Because in the first half, it seemed they were really on the back foot physically. Yeah,
they were in a few areas as well. The scrum was okay at times, but didn't look that comfortable. Set piece, we didn't have that many opportunities, to be fair, in the first half to actually really have a cut like inside the 22 in those areas. But I think the second half, boys started to carry. I think Courtney had a quiet first half, and then he came alive in the second half. Marrow was unbelievable throughout the whole game, I thought. But Courtney Lawes getting us on the front foot. Jack Conan played very well, getting us on the front foot as well. And we just started to hold the ball a little bit more. Like, in my head, you're thinking, rugby's quite simple. Keep the ball for long periods of time, and the opposition will end up making a mistake, or you'll score a try, or get a penalty. It's very simple. So I think that's what the Lions probably said at half time. Just keep the ball here, bring these boys through a few phases, and see where we are at the end of it. And that's what they've done. They, from moment to moment in the second half, they won more moments than South Africa did, and they were more composed. They looked more controlled in the second half. And as Greg just said, the kicking game was massive because we were just kicking. It wasn't like we were kicking way too long in the first half, but it was like 4 or 5 yards too long to be a proper contestable, to get good kick chase. And you're kicking back to their back tree as well and giving them just opportunities to come back at us a little bit. But second half, nice controlled, and I think they'll want to try and put that now into an 80-minute performance going forward.
Yeah, I thought both attacks were very clunky, particularly South Africans. I know the preparation over the last 2 years and even the last month has been really hard for them, but they seemed to have no rhythm. They had nothing but one-out runners, and even then they were getting the wrong numbers at the breakdown. Sometimes it was 6, sometimes it was 2, and I thought they were very limited, and once the Lions got ahead, they really struggled to pull the game back, and especially when Villiers Leroux went off, like, it was a big moment for them because he organised so much of their attack. But even the Lions as well, for me, there's a couple of times you got off the top of the line out. I think second half, bigger hits, Elliot Daly, behind the gain line, they go back into traffic, get hit. They're 10 yards behind the gain line there. Then the forwards come round and it hits caught in the head, and there's just a bit of uncertainty there, and that's just a simple hit midfield where you should just be going 9-12 Henshaw forwards around the corner and then backs or forwards again. And for me, that was the worry for the Lions going forward, and something they have to look at. I don't know what you thought in that sense.
Yeah, I'll certainly agree with the attacks. Goode were pretty clunky and did struggle to get going a fair bit, but I think that comes with probably the pressure of the test match a little bit in that first instance. It was almost like nobody wanted to lose the test match. South Africa, as you say, once they dropped behind, you could never really see them scoring like a runaway try around them because they didn't create anything, a lot of one-out runners. And that comes back to Seánie's point when, the Lions' defence, they were just able to get up, really accelerate and smash them on the sort of one-out runners, and they had no real other options and never really threatened, as a backline. So I think the Lions will be obviously delighted they won the game. They deserved to win in the end. But, South Africa, on the other hand, I think they've got a lot of work on to do between probably now and when they go into that next test. Yeah,
I think Felix Jones will be pulling his hair out as well. I think the way, you talk about attack, for instance, they never fired a shot yesterday. And neither did the Lions probably in the first half. At times, I think it was about 33 or 4 minutes in, they got, I think, more than 5 phases together, and they looked quite dangerous, the Lions did then. They got to the edge. I think Anthony Watson put in a kick in the end, and it trickled out probably this side of 22, but it was the first time you could see actually a bit of a threat by him, and South Africa will be the same. I don't know, with the players they have, why wouldn't you be attacking? Why wouldn't you be playing running rugby? Why wouldn't you be getting the ball to Colby, for instance? He didn't touch. I think he touched the ball once, and that was at 50 minutes or something.
I saw a stat. It said that he'd had more turnovers than carries in the game.
Yeah,
someone like that devastating. You've got to find ways to get him into the game. And Mpimpy as well. 2 devastating runners. But
yeah. I do think he'll be pulling his hair out this week, and I do think Rassie will have to kind of step back and have a look at this from the outside as well, because he's down carrying water. What's his messages, let's say, to the boys? Is it keep playing the same game plan when there's coaches looking at it from a different angle above? You see it from a different perspective. Different perspective, and I'm sure they'll come with a 100% a different plan. Not 100% different, but there'll be a lot of stuff different, I think, in the Springboks game this week. They'll want to try and get back to basics, get running good shape off their forward pods with lads that can get them over the gain line, and then release their backs.
Yeah, I think if the Springboks are going to play slightly differently, they have to be a little bit more inventive in terms of just slight changes, the variations in the way they launch off lineouts, especially because they just went to that driving game yesterday, and even off scrums, literally just done 9-12. Crash it up and they just kicked second phase. So if they're going to get the likes of Colby, the Mpimpy, the back three, Villiers Leroux involved in the game, you need to create some speed of ball, and try and create some space, because they're playing against one of the best defences, on the other side in the Lions' defence. So they've got to have to try and create that speed of ball to give these guys a chance to get into the game.
So you talk about the first half, obviously. I think we're all disappointed in the Lions because we knew what South Africa were going to bring. They were going to bring physicality. They were going to go at the set piece. They were going to maul the ball. They were going to kick it a lot. So if we flip that around in terms of it's a bad first half, half-time, what would Gats have said? What would he be like in the change room there? What would his messaging be like?
He'd only chip in with a few bits and pieces in terms of, I think yesterday he probably would have said, right, kicking strategy first and foremost. Let's get that nailed on and let's start winning the aerial battle. Breakdown was pretty good, but I do think he probably would have said to a couple of our bigger boys, let's get your hands on some ball here and get over the gain line, and it would have been that simple, I think, yesterday at half time, because they hadn't fired a shot in the first half, so it was all about getting back to what they've actually planned during the week, probably, which was to actually carry at these boys, make them go backwards as best you can, and play smartly. And the other thing about it is, any time we got a penalty within kicking range, we were nearly going for posts. Where definitely we should, once or twice I would have been telling the boys, let's have a crack here in the corner, and go after the game rather than just keep it ticking. There's a time to keep a game ticking, obviously, along and keep the scoreboard ticking over. But there's also a time where you have to have a crack here and put the game to bed. And it was like that Maul try, for instance. It was a massive moment in the game, obviously.
Yeah, obviously Alan Wynne did go for the corner on that one, and it proved the right decision. But I think they just wanted to, it seemed like they just wanted to get a foothold there, and they wanted to get ahead on the scoreboard. And we saw what happened to South Africa when they did get in front. But do you think it should be credit to Gats? Obviously, two things really. One, the selection, no one saw that coming, and his tactics. And then secondly, obviously, he brought his subs on. They all had a really good impact. And perhaps South Africans, did they bring on the bomb squad too early? Did they perhaps get it wrong, you know?
Well, definitely. I think you've got to give credit to Gats, because that's one thing he's done sort of consistently throughout his career is his selection. He doesn't mind picking guys that people maybe don't expect. So he's picked guys on form that have went in that game and essentially they've done the job. So, and I think the Lions were smart as well, especially going into that second half. They did change up a little bit. The lineup was maybe starting to creak in the first half. I think they maybe lost 3 for whatever reason. It wasn't just the hookers' fault. There's a bit of calling issues, and they just started to take the front of the lineup. South Africa were giving them it. They started taking it. We were able to launch some drives off the front, which is normally pretty difficult. So yeah, definitely, whatever they did change or say at half time, it certainly had an impact in the game, and also credit to the players for implementing that. They were really in control of that second half, and they simply took the game away from South Africa.
And for someone who was on Alan Wynne-Jones' player cam last week, how did you feel he went?
Yeah, he done the 80, didn't he? which is unbelievable stuff out of him. I thought the first half he was a little bit quiet. I thought he was around the ball a lot, but I didn't think he was, I suppose, doing what Alan Wynne-Jones usually does, is being a real menace. But it was an unbelievable performance. The second half, I thought he came into his own again. I thought he looked like he was on form again. Him and Itoje going around. Just their energy to bring and their enthusiasm in everything they done in the second half. He really led really well. So I thought it was phenomenal by him to last the whole game.
So you mentioned Itoje there. For you, who are the standouts?
Definitely Maro. I think just he had some big moments in that first half when the Lions weren't playing that well. And then obviously in the second half he just bossed it again. So I think him physically, his energy he brought to the whole thing, he was unbelievable. I thought Courtney, at half time I was saying to myself, does Tyke Byrne come on here and start being a bit of a menace? He start getting his hands on the ball, and then we see what he's all about physically. Getting us over the gain line, getting more involved in smacking people, what he's really good at. Thought he was brilliant. I thought Jack Cohen was brilliant for the 80 minutes. I really did. I think he's grown in confidence again. The last week he looked so assured in everything he'd done, and I'm excited to see him going forward on the tour, because again I think he's someone now that'll take a lot from that test and move forward. And for you, Greg?
Yeah, I really did think Courtney Laws was excellent, especially into that second half. He sort of really stood up, and that was probably, again, coming back to Gats a little bit in his selections, and picking Courtney at 6. I think from my experience going on that last tour, is you really sort of liked Courtney Laws and what he was all about, and he really produced a solid performance just, and really stood up and pulled the Lions forward in the second half. Maro Itoje was outstanding. I think he was excellent, for the whole game. The South Africans were getting stuck into him early in the game, but he's level-headed. He sticks to the plan, and I really thought he was fantastic. I thought Tyke Furlong was good as well. I think he'd done a lot of the hard work, and as Shawnee mentioned, the scrums earlier on. The scrums were difficult. They were messy. They were coming up. They were going down. But he really sort of stuck to task, and he'd done a great job. It wasn't really a day for the backs. I thought Ali done pretty well. I thought I got a question yesterday, how quickly will they bring on Conor Murray? But, I says, I don't think you need to do that just yet. I thought Ali kicked pretty well, and we talked about kicking to contest in the second half. I thought he'd really done that pretty well, and that was able to sort of be a part of bringing the Lions back into the game in the second half. Yeah,
I think for me, I agree. I thought, obviously, Maro everyone's talked about how good he was. Furlong was great. I thought Curry went about his business really well. I know there's that penalty early on. I over enthusiasm getting his club mate, obviously, in Faf. But I thought he just was relentless and just hitting breakdowns, smashing them low all day long. And actually, it worked well with then Hamish coming on with 20, 25 to go and just empty the tank first and let him go about it. So I thought that worked well. As you said, Conan did really well for me. And I just thought, for me, I thought Bigger had a good game. Obviously, pressure coming into it with Farrell and everything else around him, and even talked about Marcus Smith. But in a test match arena where it was so tight, one missed kick, but everything else he did well. He kept him playing in the right areas, and he just kept competing for me.
Yeah. I think as well as with Curry defensive leaders, I think Robbie Henshaw was brilliant yesterday as well. And again, he showed a little bit of toe in attack when he did get a bit of space. I think he'll be moved to 13 this week. So I do. I think he'll be moved. I think they'll play Farrell at 12 and Robbie at 13 going forward. And yeah, I just think I think we need that little bit more over 13. I think Elliott struggled early on. Two silly penalties, few missed breakdowns, bits and pieces like that. Just early doors. He probably grew into the game, to be fair to him, but I think it's just going forward. We can't afford that the next day. And it'll be huge, I think, because they're going to come nice and direct again the next day.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting the back three as well for me. Duhan, I thought, struggled first half. Obviously offside in that first minute with excitement, and then he missed the tackle on Villarreal over chasing. But I thought what he did show was a real resilience to come back in that second half, and the way he chased those kicks, and I haven't seen a lot of from him. He really made a big difference. The first one in the second half, and then later on he kept smashing Quagga Smith, and even if he wasn't getting up for it sometimes, it was man and ball and laying the platform for the forwards to get over the top of it, really.
What do you think of the subs, Greg? What do you think of more?
I thought the subs played really well.
Yeah, made a good impact.
Yeah, they made a good impact. I mean, everybody was talking about South Africa's bench, but I always looked at Lions' bench and I thought, crikey, we're doing all right here, because Conor Murray, excellent player, lots of experience. He came on and really took over that kicking game. That really helped the Lions. Turn that second half around. Owen Farrell, I thought, was fantastic. You come on, it's not an easy thing to come on off the bench sometimes and end up taking goal kicks as well. So he's sort of unflappable, isn't he, when he comes onto that situation? Another sort of a big kick at that time of the game, and he just knocks it over. So whether to bring in Owen Farrell next week into the centre, I think they'll make changes. I think will they bring Bundy Aki in? I potentially think that they might play him, but I don't know. But Mako as well. Yeah. I thought Mako was real strong coming off the bench. The scrums were settling down a little bit, but I just thought he had a couple of big moments in the game as well. So I think the whole thing worked, to be honest, and that's credit to the coaching staff as well, as making the subs at the right time. And it's such an important part now is that bench and how and when they're used.
Yeah, I thought they were all brilliant coming on. Particularly happy for sort of Mako. There's a lot of people sort of writing him off after the World Cup final and saying he can't scrum and that, and for he just showed why he had six games as a test line. Brilliant in the scrum, great around the field, and I thought as well Murray and Farrell, they're just so level-headed, and just they've been in those positions where they've closed games out so many times, and the lift it must have given the boys out there to see these two come on and just calm everything down, know exactly what they wanted to do, how they wanted to play. And I thought the Lions were just a bit smarter than South Africa. We've got on top in terms of the maul really well, but then they started to adapt. They started to do the sort of dummy maul and then play off it into forwards, and Conan using his footwork, and it got us on the front foot. So then Murray could then box kick and make it a bit easier for him. So I thought that's where the Lions were better in that aspect, certainly. So Greg, obviously there were 4 starters for Scotland, first time in since 1993. How do you think they fared throughout?
Firstly, I thought it was excellent for the Scottish boys to have that 4 of them starting. Listen, I thought they'd done pretty well. To be honest, I think we touched on the scrums a little bit earlier. They were a bit messy early on, but I think when they did settle down, I think, and it's not easy either, because Rory Sutherland, obviously he was called in quite late with Wyn Jones going down. So I thought Sut's done a good job. I think he's done what he's done the whole tour. I think he's done his job. He's been solid. And he's been sort of really, really reliable. So I think he done well, and I think he's had a really good tour, and he's sort of grown as a player already. Ali, I already quickly touched on, but it wasn't really a day for a backline. That was that type of game, certainly in the first half. And I think, but I thought he'd done well. I thought, he stuck the task. Obviously, his game's about speed and getting tempo, but it wasn't really a day for that. And sometimes you just got to be patient and just stay in the fight. And I thought he managed the game fairly well, to be honest. And he's kicking was pretty good on the whole. He's, certainly in the second half, all the kicks to compete, and the Lions got a lot of pay, out of that in that sort of second half, and that was a big turning point in the game. And he briefly touched on Duhan. It probably wasn't his strongest performance, by any stretch. But again, difficult for a winger. All he really had to do was chase kicks, and eventually he sort of seemed to get his head around that and really do that in the second half. And he brought a lot of energy and stuff as well. And again, Hoggy was similar. Wasn't a huge amount to do at the back. He was solid. Put a few long kicks in, but probably a day for the boys up front, really.
Yeah, and Shawnee, the TMO decisions. Dare I come to you about this, mate? I mean, look, I think, to be fair, I felt sorry for Marius Jonker. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. He's been put in a very, very difficult position there because he's South African. Yeah. He makes a decision that he favours South Africa. He's getting hammered. He makes a decision that's favouring the Lions to try and compensate for that after all the pressure in the media, and he's damned that way. So,
to be fair, it's absolutely madness having him there as a South African man in South Africa for these decisions. He is getting lambasted at the minute. But I think he got them right, didn't he? I don't think there's anything that.
Why are you asking us? What do you think?
Well, I think they were the right decisions.
No, I agree.
So I do.
Even the one with Villiers-Leroux, do you think he was? Do you think it was enough evidence to show that he was in front?
Yeah, he was in front.
Okay.
He's like, if he's an inch in front, he's an inch in front. So I think he done his job. And that's the end of story really on that side of it, because it's, what can you say? Like, we have 3 match officials, a video ref. Like, surely if they don't get it right, they'll question each other on it. There wasn't one question like that. Oh, is he sure? Can we have another look at that again? That's the decision, and it's done.
And dare I ask you, as a Scotsman, do you think they should have gone to the video ref for the tip tackle, Hamish Watson? Do you think he was a little bit lucky?
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit lucky, mate, to be honest. When I first seen it in real time, I sort of sat back in my seat. I was like, oh, there's going to be trouble here. And yeah, I think sometimes if you get that sort of Southern Hemisphere referee, and Nick Berry obviously yesterday, they seem to be a little bit more relaxed around that sort of stuff. And but yeah, I thought he was in trouble. There was a lift, so Hamish, he'll learn from that hopefully, and not put himself in that position.
He landed okay though.
Well, did he? He went off injured. I mean, I look, I'm a massive Hamish Watson supporter.
Yeah.
Everything. I think Sam Warburton summed it up pretty well. When he saw it on the video replay and was waiting, he would have been sweating bullets, because you just know these days, as soon as you lift, and he landed like shoulder. Yes, he put his hand down. It wasn't forceful, but as soon as you tip someone over the horizontal, you are looking at yellow cards. And I think you get the rub of the green sometimes. That's not going to change a test match necessarily, but it does make a big difference. So I feel they were a bit lucky on that. But overall, I thought the South Africans will complain, of course they will, but those decisions were the right ones. They're looking at it again and again and again. But I think it comes back to, I don't think anyone should be put in that position, personally.
No, not at all.
Not when you're from South Africa. If they live there.
Maybe we'll give him a Lions jersey, emigrate over to the UK, eh? But also it comes back to the lack of discipline from the Lions first half, and then how it's changed to the South Africans really struggling with a lack of discipline in the second half. Do you think that was just an adjustment for the Lions with the referee in the first half, or were they just losing momentum?
Yeah, I just think there was a few very silly, stupid penalties. You talk about,
is that just over exuberance?
Over exuberance, probably not listening to the referee either. There was two where the tackle was made, his knees had hit the ground, and he's telling him to release. And the boys are falling to the ground with him, like reefing the ball away. It's just a little bit silly in the heat of the moment. And there was 3 of them in the first half, for instance, and it was just about being a lot smarter. And when the Lions were smarter in the second half, discipline wasn't an issue. And that's going to be a big thing leading into the next test as well, because they are going to be under more pressure the next day. There's no doubt about it. The Springboks are going to come they're going to go even harder now. So it's about shoring that up, making sure we're getting in front of people, stopping them on the gain line again, but making sure our discipline is 100%, not to give them opportunities to get inside our own half.
Yeah, that they sort of 3 early penalties were a sort of real, stopper for the Lions. They couldn't get going after that, because 9 points in a test match is huge. In South Africa, when Bigger pulled that kick left and went into that half time 12-3, they would have been sitting back, a 9-point lead, excellent start, and almost just push on, which they obviously never done, but because the penalty count really reversed in the second half, and that was essentially the difference in the game. Really, it was that momentum swing with the penalties. Lions gave away too many in the first half, South Africa gave away too many in the second half, so both camps will be really talking about that going into the second test.
Yeah, and I think South Africans will be kicking themselves for the start of the second half. They kick off and they let the ball bounce, and they just allowed the Lions on the front foot and just let them grow, and then they score, and it's a different test match from there.
I actually think the Lions probably coped a little bit better with any time we were under pressure in terms of discipline. They were the silly ones, those penalties. But actually South Africa, when the Lions kept the ball and brought them through a few phases and stuff, they were the ones giving away actually, pens that were force pens, that were pressure penalties. So the Lions will definitely look at that, hopefully, and try and keep the ball for a lot longer the next day.
Well, now, obviously, we get to the part which all the fans at home can vote for. Subscribers to the official British and Irish Lions app, powered by Vodafone, are voting for their player of the series. So after Saturday night, who gets your vote and why? We're looking for your player of the series so far. Head over to the British and Irish Lions app and cast your vote. So you guys, who at the moment is standing out? Obviously, one test so far, but who's in the lead?
Oh, Itoje for me anyway. Yeah, 100%. I just think without his energy and his big moments in games that he has, at, as well as anyone, Alex, at club level, international level, and now with the Lions, he's just a phenomenal athlete, and he's on it every game he plays. And he's just one of these people that the Springboks won't handle him next week either. He'll come even harder next week again.
Yeah, he's relentless for me, and I think just nothing fazed him, and it was a really good sign. I think he won the penalty at 2 yards from the line, and Faf de Klerk's in his face, and he just smiled and went, it doesn't bother him. He just, I won the penalty, go about business. What's the next line out? Cool, and move forward. And it's people like that, Colossus. And I think the more people now, before the test, I was a bit worried about having enough players who knew how to win those real tight games and had been in those real Grand Slam battles or European finals and really knew how to finish off games. I think now the lift that the whole squad will get from beating the Springboks at home will be huge, and they'll be even better next week, obviously, with more prep.
Yeah, there will be, and I think I would agree with Seánie. Mara's been outstanding. I think in the game at the weekend there, he was just phenomenal. We talked about giving the Lions that real sort of lift, and he was one of the players. I think Jack Conan's been really good as well. I think Seánie touched briefly on him earlier on. He's another guy. He just goes about his job. His error count is pretty much zero. He gets through a lot of hard work and does a lot of the dark stuff as well. So I think he's been excellent. I think the Lions have been delighted with the way he's sort of come through on tour, because as we talked about last week, Tulupe Falatau's probably not been firing on all cylinders. So I think it's excellent that he's been playing like that. So yeah, they two guys are probably out in front at the moment. With Tom Curry as well. I think you touched on Goode as well. I think he's an excellent player, and again, he just goes about his job and really does his job extremely well for the team.
Yeah, well, so far the player with the most votes is Hamish Watson, followed by Duhan van der Merwe, then Josh Adams, Lewis Rees-Zammit, and fifth now is Maro Itoje. I'm sure that will change over the course of the next few days.
The test match animals will come to the fore over the next 2 weeks.
We've sort of name checked all the forwards
to the forwards.
Yeah. So but head over to the official British and Irish Lions app and cast your vote. But moving on to South Africa. We haven't got our Bok on the ground today, unfortunately. He's probably got an early game of golf or setting up the braai, something keeping him very busy, even though he managed to get to the game. But do you think they'll be disappointed in terms of how the Lions got on top physically? As a nation that pride themselves on being the most physical, that second half they just seem to either run out of gas or lose that bite they had.
Yeah, I think they'll be hurt by it, to be honest. I think you talk about history and the last time the Lions were there and the history of the Springboks, for instance. It's about It's about physically imposing yourself and dominating opposition and hurting people. Now, there's one thing that's in everyone's favour against the Springboks nowadays is video refs, and they can't throw cheap shots like they did years ago, or they can't get you on the ground with an elbow, or they can't, you know what I mean? So that brutality side of it that they used to have years upon years ago is null and void. But I think they'll be hurt from the fact that their set piece yesterday, their maul obviously got the boys got stuck into them there. The scrum, they got stuck into them at times. They didn't really have an ascendancy in that area, where I think this week they will be pumped up to try and hit the lines and you know, try and finish them off, like really go and try and smash them in those areas. And then just generally around the field, they didn't come off the line and probably once or twice in the first half and melt people really. So I think you're going to see another level in physicality. I think a couple of them were undercooked, to be fair. I think Khaleesi was undercooked. I didn't think he would be. Just how athletic he usually is. I think he's a little bit off. So there's a few boys I think that game will stand for. But I think there'll be it'll be like a red rag to a bull now this week. And I think you'll see a different Springbok game or Springbok tactic at the start of this game, but hopefully they play a little bit as well with the dangerous players they have.
I mean, I was going to say, do you see them changing their tactics at all, or do you see them just going with the tactic but going even harder, even more intense, even more physical?
I think they'll go for that route, to be honest, Goode. And I think there's no substitute for playing games of rugby. They can say they've done all the training they like, and whether it's, you know, they're not quite fit enough, or for me, they've just not had that environment to play in games and close out games, and that really sort of hurt them in the second half, and maybe even the first half. Sounds silly, I guess, but it cost them a little bit, because I think they might have got into the half time and sort of, you know, took a sigh of relief almost, and just almost relaxed a little bit, and they think, oh, maybe we got this one in the bag, we're 9 points up already, and I think they might just have relaxed a little bit, whereas the Lions really kicked on in that second half, and that's when you've been playing in these test matches, or when you're in the groove, it's just second nature. You don't need to think about it. You get involved. Second half comes, you know what you're doing. And I think they might have just relaxed a little bit because of the way the first half went. And they just sat back, and the Lions really took the game away from them, and they just couldn't get it back. You could almost see that momentum swing, and they just couldn't grab it back in the second half.
And a lot's made of the bomb squad, as they're called, coming on, Malherbe, Marks and Kitsoff. Do you think that backfired a bit? Do you think there was too much pressure on them to come on, or do you think it was just a decision made before the game and not seeing how the game actually panned out?
I don't know. Like, I think, see, it's a thing that I think that everyone forgets about. They call these boys the bomb squad. They're going in against three other international players who have been around a long time and know the game inside out. So it's not as if Mako and these boys are going to be thinking, oh Jesus, here comes the bomb squad. But people in general are.
But it had a great effect in the World Cup. They brought on a whole new front five, and they were just getting on top of teams at that point. Admittedly, they weren't coming on at half time, but it did have a very good effect. Do you think it's a case of they're just using the exact same blueprint, which is probably understandable, but they need to adapt slightly in their tactics?
Yeah, they definitely do. They need to adapt it, because it obviously didn't work yesterday for them. So there has to be some little flick of a mind or a switch there somewhere to say, okay, did I bring him on too early? Should I leave it later, or start those and bring on the other three boys? I think the South African team will be very different next week as well. I genuinely do. I think.
As in changes?
Yeah, I think there'll be a few changes in it, definitely. But yeah, look, you can say, is it too early to bring him on? Is it too late to bring him on? They just didn't make enough of an impact, regardless, as individuals, I think, yesterday, and they'll be hurt from that as well.
But I think the key for them, though, no matter how many changes they make, and you said it yourself, is they haven't had any game time. And there's a reason why they looked leggy and heavy in that second half, and they didn't have that same bite in the tackle. You can't change that overnight. And I think the Lions will know that the South Africans will come with raw emotion and physicality again for 20, 30 minutes. But we've all played teams who are all pent up and have that emotion, but eventually that goes. Yeah. And that's the interesting part for the second half. The Lions can stay with them again, first half and everything. They know they'll grow stronger into the second half.
For me, it looked as though it was maybe pre-planned. Bringing these guys on at half time that sort of almost had that discussion and whether it even told the players. And so I think you can't really plan that far ahead. You've got to see what's happening in the game, and because the Springboks had all the momentum at that half time. So if they had came out, played that first 10 minutes well in the second half, the Springboks probably would have went on, and won the game. And talking about the raw emotion side as well, Goode, and it's a question. Does it come back to there's no crowd as well? Obviously, we've kind of forgot about that. It's just become almost normal, which is weird. But there's no crowd, and everything's got to be generated from within. You can't feed off the energy from the crowd, especially playing in South Africa that you guys both have done as well. It's such a great place to go and play, and the fans get really involved. So it's a strange environment, and I think they just lack that energy and real sort of bite about them in the second half, and maybe the crowd has a little bit to do with that.
Yeah, and I think for South Africa, they've got Mpimpi, they've got Lekanyam, Willie Leroux, and obviously Colby, who we have mentioned. And how many times do those guys touch the ball? How do they get them more involved? Or, from my point of view, they went, from every scrum, they went 9 to 12 every single time. They moved it once in the first half, and Willie Leroux made the break. After that, they just went straight back to trucking it up.
Yeah, that's where I think Felix Jones will be pulling his hair out, saying, "Boys, did we actually was that a part of the plan maybe for this week, or was it not? And will it be going? What are we doing here? We should be getting on top of them and then playing to our strengths out wide, because it doesn't matter. Like Colby can beat anybody, so get him the ball. Like make him feel dangerous again. Like." Get a bit of excitement into the Springboks. He has the ability as a player to do that, but so do many others in that Springbok team. But yet, touch the ball once or twice in the whole game, for instance. So I think that's a part of the game that they'll be trying to get the ball and play a little bit this week as well, rather than just kicking and playing back at the lines the way they did in the first test. It's just, I think there's so much more in these Springbok players. There's so much more in the Lions players as well, and we've seen glimpses of it yesterday. So I think that on the flip side, the Lions will be going, let's play here. When we actually keep the ball, we look very dangerous. And the Springboks will be, they'll have a similar enough mentality as well, I think, this week coming. They need to keep the ball, they need to play a lot more, and not just be one-dimensional.
Greg, for you, it was a 9. Do you, find it much easier to kick when you're on the front foot or the back foot? It's a bit of a loaded question, but I felt that the South Africans, the one time they moved it wide and got on the front foot, they looked more dangerous because then their forward runners were going on the front foot every time and the Lions were going back. But after that one scrum, every other time it was just hit up, slow ball, then the forwards come around the corner, they're meeting a wall of Lions defenders. And I feel like for the South Africans, they have to be brave, move it from the set piece to the wider channel or get Colby into midfield dancing around, and then they can kick off the back of that. I don't know how you feel as a 9 in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard as well. I think they can have a bigger impact on this sort of second test, because you say yesterday, Goode, all the time they just kicked off the back foot, off of slow ball. So the only thing you can do once the ball is slow is really kick. Whereas if you're on the front foot, if you're playing a little bit, you're in charge and you can kick when you like. Look at the one that Faf de Klerk kicked off the scrum. That was about the only time really in the game they kicked off the front foot. Ended up getting a penalty off Tom Curry, but on the front foot, the defence is a little bit more worried. Are they going to run? Are they going to kick? You're not quite sure. It's affecting everything, as you'll know from playing at the back. It's affecting wingers, pulling wingers up, creating space in the backfield, and that kicking on the front foot enabled them in that situation to find a lot of grass. So you have to play. You've got to play, and as Seány touched on, some of the players South Africa have got, if they can get their big ball carriers, carrying dynamically and creating that quick ball, then that becomes a different story. Then I can understand why you want to kick a little bit more. So there's a lot more in the tank for South Africa, but probably what we've touched on, they've not played a huge amount of rugby. I think that came back to hurt them in the second half.
And I think for me, on the same point, is if they can get to midfield, even just away to the 13 channel or something like that, it puts so much stress on the backfield for the Lions. They seem to be working 9 in the front line most of the time, leaving Hogg on his own or the wingers to pendulum. Now, if you get on the front foot into midfield, it leaves you very exposed to the fullback, because you've got Faf de Klerk who can use his left foot and flip into the corners. You've got Pollard who can punch to the right, Willie Leroux sweeping around. It's very hard, and I think that's where they've got to be braver, because as soon as they just hit up into that first channel, it's easy. Hogs that side, wingers back.
Yeah.
There's not space. You've got to be brave, move the ball, bring the wingers up, and then they kick in behind, and it just causes so many more problems.
And it brings a whole other dimension as well, because Faf de Klerk as a running nine, he's probably one of the best in the world. And we just didn't get to see that yesterday at all. Whether that comes back to Seánie's point, was it more tactical yesterday about keeping things really simple, because they just crashed up and kicked really. So if they can generate that momentum, then the Lions defensively won't be able to put in as big collisions, and then they can generate that quick ball. So everything's got a knock-on effect. So, and Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard, excellent players, and Faf de Klerk's running game, as I've touched on it, is one of the best in the world. So if they can get him going, it's going to be harder for the Lions.
And how much better will South Africa be?
I think they'll be a lot better for this game. I think one, they'll be a bit more match conditioned, obviously, so there'll be a bit more intensity, I think, in the way they'll play. But I think they'll obviously play a little bit more. I think they'll have seen opportunities now on the edges. They'll want to get the ball into the danger men's hands, and just express themselves a little bit more. I think it was just such a conservative type of approach from them yesterday, and this one-dimensional stuff with the boys fronting up like they did in the second half, the Lions boys, it's not really going to work for them.
And obviously spoke about South Africa there. If you're Gatland, obviously we believe in him. He's selected well. He's won the game. But would you make any changes?
I think they might make a couple of changes. I think that maybe the centre position potentially, might be up for discussion. As I said earlier, I thought Rory Sutherland done really well, but Marco done well when he came on as well. So will they look at that?
Just on the centres then.
Yeah.
How would you change it? Would you bring in a Bundy Aki, a Chris Harris, or would you go to sort of a Farrell at 12? How would you look at it?
I'm not so sure a bigger Farrell Henshaw. I'm not so sure how that would work. And so I think if they change anything, I think they might bring Bundy Aki into 12 and move Robbie Henshaw out one. But yeah, I don't know. I thought Elliott done some good things as well in the game, and they seem to be a big fan of him. So whether they actually change there, I don't know. But that's potentially maybe something they might look at as well, because they might try and second guess South Africa. Dale Andy's probably going to come down that channel a lot more and just be route one, and they're going to simplify their game plan. So the Lions might look to combat that a little bit and just free up Robbie Henshaw out one more slot.
And front row, obviously late change with Wyn Jones. Would you bring him in? Would you keep as is, or any change in the pack?
If Wyn Jones is fit, I'd start him again. I'd start him in the next test.
And who would you have on the bench then?
I'd probably have Mako. Just the way he played. But then it's such a tough call on Rory. Like Rory Sutherland yesterday was excellent. He was so solid. But just Wyn Jones he's just immovable. He might steady up that ship a little bit. There was a lot of movement, and they were playing games probably with each other. The dark arts of front row play. But then Mako put his hand up and showed everyone what he was about when he came on.
And anyone else in the pack keep exactly the same? Happy with it? Hookers? Stay same?
Yeah. No, I think the pack will be the same. I think it'll start the same. I think Courtney now hit a bit of form in that second half, and that would have been the only question I had in the first half. He was pretty quiet, but he showed everyone what he's about in the second half. Yeah,
I think back three for me, I would. I think I'd bring Liam Williams in, knowing that the aerial game is so important. I think it's a harsh call probably on Duhan, but
bring him in on the wing.
I think so. Yeah. Because I feel like you probably want to keep some continuity. If you bring a fullback in to change everything around, I think it'd be tricky. I think I'd bring him onto the wing. Duhan, as I said, came into it in the second half really well. I just think they're going to come even harder in the aerial game, and having someone like him there would be so important. And I think that he might just be able to sneak over for a try at some stage. Personally, I also. Not that Ali Price played badly. I just think Murray's experience and probably physicality for Delindi coming down that channel of 9-10. I'd possibly look at bringing him in, but
kind of depends on what game plan they're going to play again, doesn't it? Because if they're going to kick like they kicked in the first half, probably Connor has that more experience in terms of that. But if they're going to play a little bit more, stick with Ali.
Yeah. I think I think you've got to stick with Ali because, as you touched on before, Sean, the Lions have got to play. Like, you can't just go out and have that. And the game really showed that yesterday in that sort of second half. If you can keep the ball, if you can try and put a few phases together and be brave, I guess, that's what's going to win you the game. And just being patient as well and kicking at the right times. And I thought Ali had done well. I know he'd have been frustrated a little bit because he couldn't get his game going, but he done really well. He kicked when he should have kicked, and he didn't look he was unflappable, I guess.
I think the bigger picture as well is, Goody, that we talked about the bench earlier, obviously, but having Murray and Farrell, let's say, to come on again, to see off these games and to control everything is invaluable in this test arena, so. It is the bigger picture as well. I know we might say, oh, I prefer him there. Is it the right decision for the team to actually go and win the game? And having those two boys coming on is incredible, to be fair.
Agreed. But what happens if you're behind? And my argument would be is, it's going to be tight and it's going to be physical in that first, 40, 50, 60, 70 minutes. Does Ali Price bring something late on? If you know that he can play the kicking game, but he can also chase the game a bit and be a sniping 9 who perhaps didn't have that chance in the first half, but could be very good in the second half.
It's a very good point, and maybe the Lions will go down that route this week, Goode, because if they just need to win by 1 point this week and it's job done. That's it. Just got to get over the line. So whether you bring Connor in, if they say right, we're going to experience this week because of the things you've just mentioned, they might bring on Farrell in, to start in that 12 slot, just to say, again, he's got that experience, he's level-headed, we know what we're going to get, strong defensively as well. So all they need to do this week is literally score 1 more point in the Springboks and it's job done. And
training this week, very low-key.
Well, hopefully they stop drinking today at some stage. They probably had a good few beers last night, but no, it'll be very light, I'd say, this week again, and just get ready for the test game, because probably the boys who didn't play, they'll have a good blowout at some stage, probably tomorrow or Tuesday morning. But it'll be light enough, I think, for anyone that played in that test.
Yeah, I text back and forth with Mako, and he was the most, or the least enthusiastic guy after a win against the Springboks I've ever known. He just was like, "Yeah, it was a good day. Cheers, thanks." Sweet, Mac, get a lot from me, mate. But he probably knew I was going to snitch on him here. But no. So on to next week. Predictions from you, Greg?
I think it's a tough one to call again, like yesterday was. So I'll try and get myself off the fence. I think the Lions are going to win. I think they do. I think the Springboks, they've just not had enough rugby to play against a good team like the Lions are, and I think it's going to be tight. But I think the Lions have got enough in them. But I'm going to go the Lions by 6 points.
I agree. I think the Lions will win. And
you said off air you thought it would be a travesty if it wasn't a whitewash. So you sticking with that?
Whitewash, yeah. Train it.
You sound very English there, getting very ahead of yourself.
That's exactly what I said in New Zealand too. Got myself in trouble. No, I think they'll win. I think they'll win again. I think probably the same. 6 points is I said 6 yesterday. And I'm sticking with 6 again. I just think they'll be too controlled. They'll be too smart. And they don't ever we want them to play a little bit. I'm actually just thinking now, I think they're just going to welly the ball in behind South Africa and let them seek to play out from their own line. So Lions for the win.
Yeah, I think the pressure's on them now, but I think South Africa will win the next test by 2 points, but then it will go to a decider. And the Lions will take it late on. It's a bit of a dream to make it a really exciting series. But on to other news, Seán. I noticed on your social media, a bit off topic here, that you've been swimming in the Thames, mate. Did you not know that there was a bit of a powerful current there? It's taking your dogs for a swim there?
Nearly got swept away, so I did. Lucky to be sitting here, Goody.
Yeah, I know. What happened, pal?
I was chasing a tennis ball. The dog wouldn't get it, so I went after it myself.
Dog's cleverer than you, obviously. Sees you lob it into the middle of the Thames and went, you go, pal.
He couldn't see it in the rapids. But yeah, no, it was after a tough day training during the week, so I said I'd go for a quick dip with the doggies and... yeah, got a surprise when I got in there. It was pretty strong current, so I won't be going back in there again.
Are you a good swimmer? What happened?
I am actually a good swimmer. I don't have a swimmer's body, but I'm actually quite strong.
That's funny because
swimmer.
you told me you tensed very, very hard for that picture you put online. You didn't put anything about the swimming. You're just there, side profile, tensing
There'll be no
up.
top off for you for another few weeks to get back into pre-season.
I've got tan now. Everything looks better. But yeah, you survived at least.
Yeah, I survived. Got out just about. So dogs are good.
Who rescued you?
I rescued myself.
Honest call?
Yeah, on a rescue.
You didn't have to grab a hold of your dog. He was swimming quicker than you.
Grabbed his tail quick. Give myself a little.
You got pulled out by your dog. That's how good at swimming you are. But there we have it. But I don't know. Have you been swimming any locks recently? Just a good 10 with that?
No, I'm not. certainly not in the Thames. I'm not going in there.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised you're not a bit sick after that. But
I'm good.
There we have it.
I'm good.
Well, that's all we have time for on this week's House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone. Thanks for listening or watching, and we'll see you on Thursday.
You've been watching the House of Rugby,